Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel again. My name is Vance. If you're new here, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for coming back. So in today's tutorial guys, I'm going to be teaching you how to make this beautiful gown. It's a milkmaid gown with basque waistline and gather, and it also has a puff sleeve. So guys, I'll first start with the pattern drafting before I go into the sewing part. So if you're interested in this tutorial, why not? Let's get right into it. So guys, this is my pattern paper, of course. So I'll go ahead and roll out my starting line. When I'm done rolling out the starting line, the next thing I'm going to do is to take the vertical measurement, which is my client's bust points, which is 9.5. Her under bust will be making use of 12.5. Half length will be making use of 16 inches. Then for the backs, we'll be making use of 25 inches. So I've gone ahead to mark it out. When I'm done guys, the next thing I'm going to go off to do is I'm going to start rolling out those marks that I made to make it more visible. So this was me rolling out the marks, my under bust, my half length, and then the full length of the backs. So when I'm done guys, what I'm going to do next is to go ahead and indicate my bust point, under bust, waistline, and then hip line. I used hip for this part, but you can also use full length. So I'll go ahead and take my client's shoulder divided by 2, come down by 1 inch, take her armhole line, her bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. I marked it, and then I'll go ahead to roll it out with my ruler. So when I'm done, this part is going to be our chest line. So I indicated it, replaced her shoulder, marked it there, and then I'll connect the shoulder to the first shoulder, just the way you see me doing. So when I'm done with this guys, I'll go at the bust, at the chest line, mark the bust point. The middle on the armhole, I'll get the midpoint, and then I'll mark it, and I'll come in at that middle point by ½ inch, and then I'll go ahead and connect the 3 points together, just as shown. When I'm done connecting guys, the next thing I'm going to do is to take my nipple to nipple. For my client, I used 4 inches on the bust points, under bust, waistline. I mistakenly used 4.5 on the waistline, but I'll go ahead and correct it. And then the hip line, I also used 4 inches. So I'll go ahead and connect the points together. So at this point, that was when I realized that I made a mistake, so I had to go and correct it. So when I'm done correcting it, I'll now go and roll my points, that's connect my points together, just the way you see me doing. So guys, when I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to do on my waistline, I'll come in by ½ inch on both sides. After which guys, on my hip line, I'll come up by 2 inches. I marked it, and then I'll go ahead and connect from my waistline to my bust point. From my bust point, I'll just connect it just as shown. Then I'll go ahead again and connect from my hip line to my waistline. The same thing for the other part. So when I'm done with this, the next thing I'm going to do is to go ahead. So I'll go ahead and divide my bust by 4, add my allowance. I'll divide my under bust by 4 and also add my allowance. So I'll replace my darts and then I'll add my allowance on my under bust. I'll do the same thing for the waist. I'll divide my waist by 4 and then add my darts, then add my allowance. Just the way you see me doing. I'll replace my darts after I divided my waist by 4, and then after replacing my darts, I'll add my allowance. So guys, for my waistline, I'm going to come down by 2.5 inch because this back waistline came down. It's not at the waistline directly. It came down below the waistline to get that back's effect. So whatever I have on the waistline, I'll repeat it at the new lower waistline. I'll mark it there, and then I'll go ahead and connect my points together just the way you see me doing. So when I'm done connecting my point, I'll go ahead and connect this point down to the hip line with my ruler, just the way you see me doing, to get that basque effect. Next thing, guys, is to go from the under bust. I'll come up by 0.75. So I marked it there, and then I'm going to connect it to my under bust dart, just the way you see me doing. So when I'm done connecting it, I'll go ahead and check the distance between my bust point and my under bust, which is 3. So I place the 3 inches on my bust point, and then I marked the remaining thing there. So from my shoulder, I went to check what was left, and it was 6.5. So I connected it straight down. So we are using 6.5 for the off shoulder. I'll go ahead and cut out the pattern, just the way you see me doing. Then when I'm done, I'm going to use this front pattern to draft out the back. So I introduced a new sheet. I went ahead to roll out the starting line for the back. So when I'm done rolling it out, I'll go ahead, guys, and take my zip allowance. I'll be using 2 inches for my zip allowance. So I marked the 2 inches straight down to where I wanted it to be, and I connected the points together. So when I'm done connecting the points, guys, I'll go ahead and place the front pattern on the 2 inches, directly on the 2 inches, and then I'll go ahead and pin down, so I'll be able to cut it out. So when I'm done pinning, guys, what I'm going to do next is to mark the darts, just the way you see me doing, so that's going to reflect at the back side of our pattern. So I'll go ahead and extend this line to my zipper part. So from that full length, I extended my line through to the zipper part. Also on the waistline, I'm also going to go ahead to extend my line just like this, because I'll be removing some inches from the waistline to avoid zip bulges. So I remove 0.75 from the waist, and then I'll go ahead and connect it through to the chest line, just the way you see me doing. And from that waistline, I'll connect it through to the hip line, just like this. So when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and indicate zipper allowance. So I'm writing out my zipper allowance here, so you will know that this is actually my zipper allowance. So when I'm done, I'll go ahead and cut out the piece. So when I'm done cutting, guys, I'll go ahead and remove my pins, and then before then I'll cut out my zipper. That's the allowance that I removed. I'm going to cut it out. Then I'll take off my pins. So that I'll start cutting on my fabric. So from that upper part, from the back zip, I'll come down by 1 inch. So I marked my 1 inch there, and then I'll go ahead and connect it, because I do not want the back side to be straight. That's why I came down by 1 inch. For some of you that will be asking, why did you come down by 1 inch? Because I do not want the back part of my zipper to be straight. So I went ahead to cut it out. When I'm done cutting, guys, I'll go ahead and still mark my darts so I won't forget. So from the front part, guys, I will cut out my under bust line. Remember that we are going to ruche from the under bust based on what is on the thumbnail. So when I'm done with this, guys, I'm going to close the waistline dart. From my under bust to my waistline to my full length, I will close the dart, just the way you see me doing. So I'm going to go ahead and get my masking tape so I can close the dart. While closing your dart, guys, and you see that the dart is puffing out, do not mind, just continue. It's not going to affect anything. So at this point, I was a bit scared, because why would my pattern paper be coming up? But then I realized later that it didn't affect my pattern, it didn't affect my dress. So don't be scared if your pattern paper is bulging out. So I was still trying to put the masking tape very well. So for the part that I was going to ruche, I used 1.5 inch for to draw out the lines, because it's this 1.5 inch that I will use to cut through it so that I can get that ruche effect. So I want you to watch clearly. So I went ahead to use my ruler to connect the points that I made together. So when I'm done, guys, I'll label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. I'll go ahead and cut it out. So guys, when I'm done cutting, I'm going to bring a fresh sheet to place them on it. So the part that I cut 1 to 6, I'm going to start placing it. First of all, I'm going to place it on the center front of the new sheet. I'll pin it down, and then I'm going to give a distance of 1 inch. You can actually give a distance of 1.5 the way you want it to be. If you want it to be really full, you can give 1.5, 2 inches, but I don't want it to be really full. I want it to be moderate, so I used 1 inch for my distance between my 1 inch to my 2 inches. I did the same thing, 1 inch. I placed the 4, I pinned it down. I did the same thing for the 5, and straight to the 6 part I use 1 inch, and then I pin down. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my pencil to trace it like this, the way I'm doing it. Trace it through the armhole, and then I'll go ahead and cut out. So when I'm done cutting, guys, I'll go ahead and remove my pins one after the other, and then you can see this is our new part. So guys, these are the patterns, my back, my front block, and then the parts that I'm going to ruche. This is our pattern. So what I'm going to do is to introduce my fabric. So this is my fabric. Initially my client bought 3 yards of fabric, but I said it was not going to be enough, so she had to add 1 extra yard. So in total I used 4 yards of fabric, vintage fabric to be precise, to finish up with the tutorial. So these are the tools I'll be using for it. So what I'm going to do is to start folding my fabric to cut out the pattern. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into 2 like this, and then I'll place the pattern on it. First I'll be placing the ruche part. So for the part I'm going to ruche, I left about, from the center front, as you can see, before I pin down, I left about 1/2 inch because I'm going to hem that part. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the other part of my front block. I'll pin down. If you notice at this point, I didn't leave any 1/2 inch because I'm not going to fold anything. It's just at the ruche part that I left 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead and cut. I hope you understand. For the ruche part, as you can see, I left 1/2 inch. That's this part I'm cutting, is the part I'm going to ruche. I left 1/2 inch at the center front, so I had to just open it a bit. While for this other part that I'm cutting right now, I didn't leave 1/2 inch because it's not necessary. It's just for the upper part that I left 1/2 inch. So I went ahead to add my necessary allowances, and then I set it aside. I folded my fabric again into 2 to place the back part of our pattern drafting. So basically this is it. This is the back part. I'll go ahead and arrange it properly, and then I'll pin it down. So when I'm done pinning, guys, I'll go ahead and cut out. So I'm going to cut lining for this piece. I'm going to also do this thing, put my paper stay on it to make it more firm. So basically guys, I'm also going to go ahead and fold my fabric so I can be able to cut out the other parts, which is the this thing, the gather part. I'll be using 19 inches for the length of the gather. So this is the 19 inches. I marked it, so I'm going to mark it all through. So I'll go ahead and cut when I'm done. So I'm going to cut about 3 of it or 2, because I'll cut 2 rather, because I want it to be very long. So this was it. When I was done cutting the first one, I folded my fabric again, and then I'll place the one I've cut initially on it, and then I'll go ahead and cut. So when I'm done cutting, I'm going to set this aside also. Then it's a gather, so I'm going to join the 2 pieces that I cut together so it will be very long, and sew it down by 1/2 inch. That's this part I'm pinning down. I'm going to sew it down by 1/2 inch, so to make my gather to be very long, or to make my piece to be very long. Then I'll go ahead and sew it down, and then I'll open it up like this, and then this part is where I'm going to go and sew down so I can be able to draw my gather, just the way you see me doing. So I'll show you when I'm done with what I was doing. So I folded my fabric again to cut out the ropes that I'll be using. So I'll be using some ropes. The front has a rope where you're going to pass through the casing, so I'll be cutting out all the ropes for it, and so that will be it for this. So guys, if you found value in my tutorial, please do well to subscribe, like my video so it can reach more people. Leave a comment in the comment section if you have any question you need to ask me, and I'm going to see you in the next tutorial, which will be the sewing part of this tutorial. So watch out for my next post. It's going to be the sewing tutorial of this dress. I can't wait to share with you how it went and how beautiful the outfit was. So basically I was just cutting out all the ropes. That's what I was doing in this part. So we've come to the end of the cutting part of our dress. So I'm going to see you in my next tutorial. Bye guys.